Hello everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Capitol Watch, our review of the 2012 regular session of the Missouri General Assembly. And joining us to talk about the issues that passed and did not pass during the session are Mike Reed, our Associate Executive Director for Advocacy and our Chief Lobbyist, and Mike Grote, our Governmental Relations Consultant. And gentlemen, thanks a lot for being with us.
Well, it's good to be here today when there's a little less pressure.
Right. Mike, tell us about the session in general, your impressions of how it went.
Well, the session this year started out with a lot of talk about changing education. That was the big agenda for the leadership in both the House and the Senate. They were going to do a lot of things to change education. There were a few things that were passed, but as it ended up, there were not a lot of great changes to education, and the changes that did pass came with a lot of work with a number of people in making sure that students were not hurt.
Mm-hmm. And Mike, one of the positive things, I guess, for education was the budget. Tell us how that came out.
Sure. This year was one of those trying budget years that we have seen here in Missouri in a number of years. I think all the legislators that work with the budget will tell you this was clearly the most complicated. A number of items were cut. There were a number of leftover holdbacks from years prior, one-time funds that no longer existed. You had the Senate that was unwilling to use new one-time funds, and so it definitely created some budget shortfalls and some constraints. With all that said, I think it was very fortunate that legislators did prioritize education funding, and I think we saw some good increases, although small. There were increases. There was a maintaining of the education budgets throughout, and which is very important, I think, in this tough time, because so many things were cut.
Mm-hmm. And the bottom line was we had a $5 million increase in the foundation formula, which isn't a lot, but it's sure better than a cut, isn't it?
It's much better than a cut. When you saw every other department was looking at anywhere from 2 to 15% across the board cut, to have education come through, even with a nominal increase, was amazing, quite frankly. And it's a testament to both Ryan Silvey, who is the budget chairman, as well as Senator Kurt Schaefer, who is the appropriations chairman in the Senate. So.
Mm-hmm. One of the issues that did pass this year, Mike, was a charter schools bill, charter schools expansion. And before we talk about that, we want to take a look now at a section of an interview with State Representative Tim Jones of Eureka. He's the majority floor leader in the Missouri House, and he discussed that bill at the conclusion of the session. So let's take a look at that right now.
Our charter school bill put children first. Now children in failing schools can obtain a quality education, and parents, who should be the primary force behind that educational choice, are put more in charge. This will put them on a path to a better life. It's fundamentally unfair for public schools to be held to a different standard than charter schools. That is why, in addition to the increase in expansion for the charters, accountability has been included as well.
And Mike, the charter schools expansion bill, overall, it does include some additional accountability measures.
And that's the most important thing to us, is the accountability section of this. Again, as you know, we work off of resolutions passed by our members, and some of the resolutions that we have is if charter schools are expanded in Missouri, they're expanded with much more accountability, and so charter school operators will be accountable for the money that they use, and to make sure that their students achieve growth, and that's something that has not happened. And many charter schools have not operated, and the students have not done as well on tests as students in public school districts, in other public districts. The expansion of charter schools, which the newspaper seems to keep pushing, is an interesting thing. Charter schools will be able to go into unaccredited districts. Presently, they can now only be in Kansas City and St. Louis. There's only one other unaccredited district in the state right now. In provisionally accredited districts, after the district has been provisionally accredited for 3 years, the charter school may be started in that district by a charter school sponsor or by the local school board. And then in all accredited districts, charter schools may be established only at the sponsorship of the local school board. So again, this is one of our resolutions, that charter school expansion shall be under the local control, and that we think that's important. So charter schools are here. You're putting your head in the sand if you think charter schools are going to go away. So we need to have the accountability portion of the law to make sure that that students are not hurt.
Mm-hmm. Mike, another bill that did pass has to do with hardship travel and the ability of students who reside in one school district to attend another school district. Tell us about that.
Sure. This was definitely an issue that began at the beginning of the year, which was going to be much more comprehensive. I think, as Mike mentioned, we saw this as being one of the major pushes of the legislature of a way to, quite frankly, completely change how our schools work and to be able to change where students can attend school. I think the hardship transfer language ended up being a fairly reasonable compromise in dealing with that very small population of students that are able to transfer to a neighboring district.
Mm-hmm. But I guess our concern is this bill might be the first step toward momentum toward open enrollment. Is that true?
I think there's always that concern that this could be the first step towards open enrollment, and I think and that's what I was alluding to at the beginning of the year. You had this strong push for open enrollment, and that's clearly where this legislature was headed. And I think they recognized that maybe there were some additional concerns with open enrollment, and I'm not willing to say yet that this is completely the camel's nose under the tent, but it is a beginning, it is a start, and it's something we'll have to keep our eye on moving forward.
Mm-hmm. An issue that received a lot of attention, Mike, this session, but did not pass was what we call the foundation formula fix. Kind of set that issue up for us. Why was that important?
Well, it's important because the foundation formula was passed 7 years ago, and it was phased in over a period of time. And there are a percentage of amount of money that comes from the state from the old formula and the new formula. It is now to be fully funded under the new formula. Unfortunately, the amount of money that the state has been able to put into the formula is less than was anticipated. And so we're about $250 million plus short on the amount of money that's in the formula. That being said, the state is going to have to prorate the amount of money that goes to districts. And the question comes, what about hold harmless districts and formula districts, and how much is that proration going to be? So it is a note of contention between those kinds of districts. We had hoped to get a foundation formula fix. It did not happen. There was just too much infighting between senators, representatives, special interest groups to get that done. Something will have to be done in the near future. DESE will be the one who makes the determination on how the money will be distributed. And at this time, we're not sure what they're going to do, but it is going to be a question that will be brought back again next year. Truthfully, the truth of the matter is, you know, they may have to look to even rewrite a whole new formula, which will be a lot of work, and I don't think anybody's ready to do that yet.
Mm-hmm. And State Representative Mike Talboy of Kansas City, who's the minority floor leader in the Missouri House, addressed that issue at a news conference following the end of the session. And let's take a look now at what he had to say about the issue.
I think we may actually have some folks get together and actually start to have those discussions. And they need to start happening now, particularly when it comes to the foundation formula. That's got to happen right away because it's a complex issue. And I'll be completely honest, I don't understand all of it, and I won't even stand up here and try to say that I do. But the people that understand it need to get together on both sides and figure out exactly what's going to need to take place and what can be worked out. And they need to make very sure that they explain it to everybody in a way that people are comfortable with, because we can't continue to have this idea of punting things to the next year and the next year or 5 years down the road.
So Mike, do you think that the legislature may study this issue or will have some activity on the formula fix during the interim at all?
I believe that the Joint Committee on Education will be doing a little work on that issue. Someone is going to have to see exactly where we're going to come, because we have this shortfall in money. And there is no increase in general revenue in the state of Missouri, and there doesn't look like there will be any for the next few years. So this is a question that's going to keep reappearing, and it needs to be answered.
Mm-hmm. Another issue that received a lot of attention but did not pass, Mike, was the so-called Turner fix, and we had a court decision during the session that had an impact on that as well. Tell us about that.
Well, I think clearly the court decision, what I believe is maybe the last 8 days or so of the legislative session, I think that clearly changed the focus and further took that issue out of the category of things that were going to pass. Had it not been dead long prior to that, probably. I think, as Mike was saying, you had the foundation formula, you had Turner, you had a couple of other issues that got rolled up together. I think the reason why we saw 576 or the charter school bill pass was there was a collective effort early in the session. We brought people together, we came up with language, and we moved that language forward. On these other issues, they became balled up into trying to solve everything at one time, and as you know, that's just simply not possible. You have to break the issues down and work through them. The Turner fix got rolled up into the hold harmless issue, and how certain districts were dealing with funding and other issues, and it just became a big pot that was too much, quite frankly, for anyone to handle at one time. And it became part of a bargaining process, a deal-making process of, in order to get the Turner fixed, you were going to have to implement all these other reforms that simply weren't going to happen. And it became just a fight between some groups and education.
Mm-hmm. Another issue that got bogged down and did not pass by the end of the session, Mike, had to do with the intervention of the State Board of Education in unaccredited districts, the Kansas City School District in particular, and just didn't make it through the process.
It did not make it through the process. It started out very quickly, and the State Board of Education wanted to remove the 2-year period of time before they could come into an unaccredited district. It was designed for the Kansas City School District, but again, it was for any district that becomes unaccredited. It had some movement. It got held up, as Michael said, on various other issues. Up until the last day, until probably the last hour, there was a chance that that bill might pass, but it was tied to another piece of legislation. Some members of the House said, no, if I don't get one bill, I'm not going to give the other bill. So that is, so it failed. I think you'll see that issue come back again with some of the discussion about what's best for unaccredited districts. As I said, DESE pushed very hard to get that passed, and it didn't work.
An issue we always keep our eye on during every session, it seems like, Mike, is vouchers or tuition tax credits or whatever form that issue might take. And we had several of those issues discussed during the session, but none of those made it, did they?
I think, as I was saying earlier, that's part of the larger ball of issues that were brought up. And as always, early in session, those were moving. You definitely saw a push for vouchers or tax credits or whatever the latest incarnation of that is, moving quickly through the House, and became tied to, in order to have a fix for Kansas City, in order to have Turner, it all became one big package, and thankfully we were able to push that stuff down. Mm-hmm.
What about teacher tenure reform, Mike? There was a lot of discussion on that, and again, it didn't make it through.
Once again, there's a big push on teacher tenure reform. There were a couple of new players in the new advocacy groups who came into the state of Missouri this year to change and work on teacher tenure reform. Up until 20 minutes till 6, there was a bill that would kind of tweak teacher tenure reform, and it died right at the end. There will be a big push again next year for teacher tenure. Questions on teacher tenure and performance evaluations, and so that will be something that is out there that we need to discuss to see what is best for the students, what is best for the teachers, and what is best for the districts. But it was out there and had a big push, but again, like a lot of other things, it was balled up together in something else and died.
Mm-hmm. Well, the regular session is now over, gentlemen, but that does not mean that our members should not stop talking to their legislators. Is that right? In fact, this interim period, sometimes that's the best time to talk to legislators, isn't it?
Oh, it is. This is the time that they need to talk to the legislators about what passed and how that affects the students in their districts, and the questions that they may have. And there are questions that we need to look at. We need to look at tax credits and how they affect districts. We need to look at open enrollment again. We need to look at what the charter school expansion does. But it's extremely important that we have grassroots efforts to talk to your legislators about what is happening. Michael, don't you?
And this is an important year simply because it is an election year, and there will be a number of new legislators that we have coming into the building. We'll have a number of House members transitioning to the Senate, as well as new Senate members. And so this is an important time for our members to get involved in that process, meet some of the candidates, and begin to communicate our issues of concern early on, to start that or further develop that grassroots network and make sure those individuals are educated when they come to Jefferson City.
All right, Mike Grote, Mike Reed, Thanks for all your good work during the legislative session, and thanks for being with us on our program. We appreciate it very much. And we will be keeping you informed on issues during this interim period between legislative sessions so that you can continue to contact your legislators and candidates for the General Assembly during this election year. Thanks for being with us on this special edition of MSBA's Capitol Watch.